Hi, my name is Max Martin. If you're viewing this at the moment, it's probably because you've been listening to our fitness segment on ABC Radio in Adelaide with Grant Cameron. We've been on Wednesday afternoons talking about fitness progressions, how you can get active, especially leading up to summer now. A lot of people are getting outdoors and people are asking us what sort of exercises they can be doing at home. We've been talking a lot about the squat as a very useful exercise for a couple of reasons. One, it's a very functional exercise. What we mean by that is that you tend to do it a lot. It's the sort of movement that you do every time that you sit down, that you stand up, that you get in and out of a car, for example, getting out of bed, stepping onto the floor. All of those movements are the basis of a squat. The other very valuable thing about a squat is that it uses a lot of very large muscles in the body. Typically we see people that they buy a couple of light weights and they're doing arm exercises and working a very, very small muscle group. So the overall effect of that exercise is relatively small compared to an exercise such as a squat, where we're using the large muscles of the buttocks and the thighs, both at the front and the back. So two benefits in using a squat as an exercise. One is the fact that you tend to do it a lot during the day, so the better you can do it, the safer you're going to be while lifting things up off the floor and getting in and out of chairs. And the other one is that you're getting a lot of benefit from burning more energy by using larger muscles, getting better hormonal responses because these large muscles release more hormones when they're working. So you're going to get a lot more for the time that you're investing into your exercise. So what I'll do in just a minute is I'm going to invite Scott to show us how to do a good squat, and I'll talk you through what's actually going on and how you can start to do this at home. So now we're going to have a look at a squat. So I've asked Scott, who's one of our senior exercise physiologists, to help us how to do a squat and to be able to show you the technique and how it can be useful and how we apply it on a day-to-day basis. So first thing that Scott's going to do is he's just going to do a couple of squats so that you can see what we mean by this exercise. Thanks, Scott. Great. So as you can see, there is no movement through Scott's spine. So his spine is staying in a nice neutral position, so there's no risk of bending through that spine. And he's using the very large muscles of his backside and thighs to be able to perform the movement well and make it safe and a strong movement. Okay. Now what we're going to have a look at is how that actually connects to things that you would do on a day-to-day basis. So we'll start with something as simple as sitting down and standing up, and how close we can get that exercise of the squat and movements such as sitting down. Thanks, Scott. So Scott's just going to sit down on this bench and standing back up again. We'll do that again, Scott. Okay, so that shows you the transition between the exercise and an activity of daily living, and the way that you can actually very safely at home do that as an exercise. So getting a chair, sitting down onto it so you know there's no risk of falling down while doing the exercise. Now what I'm going to get Scott to do is actually pause halfway through the movement so we can have a look at some of the key technique things that I'd like you to be aware of when you're doing this exercise. So Scott, if we do a squat again, and bend down and stop there. So what we're looking at is Scott's backside has come backwards. Okay, so the center of gravity starts to move back, but he's counterbalanced that by leaning his body forwards. The spine is in its neutral alignment and his weight is over his feet. And the knees, so if we'll go back there, we'll give him a little rest and go back down again. The knees are pretty much in line with his toes, not going very far over them. Okay, so this is a much safer position for the knees, and he's using muscles of backside and thighs. So again, we'll stand up there to drive the movement. Okay, now we'll put another application into this, which is picking things up on a day-to-day basis. So we've just got a crate here, and Scott's going to show us how a squat can be used to pick things up well. Thanks, Scott. And back up and putting it down. So we're using the same movement, which then reduces the amount of load on the spine and helps us use muscles that are really strong. Now, if you were to use this as an exercise at home, what I'd recommend is start by just doing a few. Get a high chair, perhaps even sitting and having a table behind you. So it's a lot higher, so you don't need to travel quite as far in doing that squat. Once you're comfortable with that, you can start to move on to a lower support. and then progress that to actually not sitting down at all. So getting down, staying just short of the chair or bench, and then standing up again. I'll get Scott to show us that. So Scott, if you can just squat down but not actually sit down on the bench, and then coming back up. So then that way you know that if you do lose your balance, you've got that behind you. Now we're trying to keep more of the weight towards the heels rather than the toes. This way we're going to use those hip muscles more than placing stress on the knees, which will keep the knees safer. Okay, and I would build it up so that you can do about 10, have a little bit of a rest, do another 10, and ideally do that 2 or 3 times a day.